Okay, and now we're recording. Hi, this is Quisha, Abby, Tanya, and Cynthia. We're back again. We're back again this week with another video. This week we have a little bit of a different format. Today we'll just be having a open conversation between us, talking about all the events that have been going on this past weekend, the riots, the protesting, the looting, and all over the world. Due to the death of George Floyd. We'll just be discussing how it's affected each one of us, how we feel about it, and our opinions, and hopefully giving each other some encouragement as well as you guys as this time goes by. So, anyone who we were discussing earlier, we were just saying that the justice system is a broken system, and it wasn't broken; it was built broken. And Abby was saying that she had a discussion about it and just saying like it hasn't like disintegrated over time. It was built on a broken foundation and it just gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on. Instead of getting better, it's getting worse.
Yes.
We think we're making progress, but then in real life and behind the shadows, and even now in plain daylight, you can see how bad it really is. And we were discussing how much work it's going to take to dismantle this institution and this corrupt justice system and to build something new and that works for all people, because as we know, when the justice system's foundation was laid, it wasn't laid with black people in mind, with brown people in mind. It was made for white European people, and not even white European females at all times. White European males is who it benefits the most. And even now in the 21st century, 2020, that's still who it's benefiting the most. And it's really time for a change. So we want to discuss the rioting and this week's events. I live in an inner city where rioting was and looting was very prevalent and very intense. I haven't even driven past certain parts of my town because I don't want to see how bad it is. And as I was out today doing some shopping at some stores, some of my favorite stores, Menards and stuff like that, they were just closing down. They were boarding up. I'm driving past stores and banks and different stores that have boards across their whole front of the store, and people are at grocery stores, the little grocery stores that are open, just scrounging for whatever food they can get. The grocery store looked, even in a time where we already have a pandemic, we already have COVID-19 going on, people are panicking. Now this is happening and it's making people panic worse. I personally, well, y'all can jump in whenever y'all want to. Like, I personally think that although I'm not for looting and robbing and all that, I feel like this may be a necessary evil sometimes. Like, you have to do what is going to get you a result. And right. Peaceful protesting and lobbying and all this stuff is not getting a result, then sometimes you have to go to another measure. I also do think that behind these riots and all this stuff, that when the time comes to vote for someone, that we are voting for candidates that are for the people, not just certain people, but the people as a whole. That includes Black people, brown people, Chinese people, white people, all the people, Native American people. I feel like when it's time to vote, we have to have this same type of energy to go out and pick candidates that are for the people and that want to see change, and not people who want to keep the system as it is. And not only pick people that want to see change, demand that the candidates that we vote for push for change, that they really stand on their word and do what they said they're going to do. And especially us as Black voters, we need to push the candidates that we're voting for to stand up for us. What are they going to give us back in return for our vote? Are you going to fight for us? Are you going to fight for, the police brutality to end? Are you going to fight for our rights? Are you going to fight for fair wages, things like that? Are you going to fight for that type of stuff for the Black community? So as a Black voter, we have to, as Black voters in general, we have to pick candidates and demand from the candidates that we pick to feed back into our communities. And I also feel like our white counterparts, our Mexican counterparts, in order for it to be successful, we have to have them as allies. And they have to stand up and they have to speak and they have to say, this isn't right.
Right.
If I'm going to vote for you, you have to be right.
Right. Just like Dr. Martin Luther King said, injustice somewhere is injustice everywhere. So what affects us, it affects everyone. Because just like what's happening right now, it's not just affecting Black people, it's affecting Black people, brown people, white people, Latin, it's affecting everybody. Especially now that the stores are closing early. A lot of people are not able to go get food and different things. And even like on your way back home, if you pass the curfew, if you don't have that address on your ID, it's going to be almost impossible to get back to your house unless you have some type of light bill or gas bill or something with that address on it if it's not on your ID.
I just got, you guys can't see my phone because it's shining, but I just got an emergency alert on my phone from the imminent extreme, what does it say, alert, saying that CTA bus is temporarily suspending all bus and train services effective at 9:30 p.m. for the safety of riders and CTA employees. The suspension will remain in effect until 6 a.m. tomorrow. Citywide curfew remains in effect from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. All essential workers are exempt. Please stay safe. Like, to get this on your phone right now, like you hear this sound, like it goes until you check it. It doesn't stop until you check it.
Mm-hmm.
This is what our country has come to.
Right. I'm surprised I didn't get that alert.
I didn't get the alert either. It's pretty,
well,
but it's
pretty
scary.
I live in the city, so
yeah, it's pretty scary and kind of it's sad because you basically you don't know what to expect. You're like, it's to me it's like I'm in a dream. It's like I'm dreaming and I'm like trying to wake up out of the dream because I never thought something like this to this extent would happen here in the here in the US. So like over where I live at, a lot of stores are shut down, boarded up. You can't even go out and get your groceries. You can't, like, you're like being followed to and from getting on the off the expressway by police officers trying to find out exactly where they follow you to where you live at. Make sure you live in the community around the area. So it's like you're they're following you, but you're also kind of scared of them because of what's going on. So you're like scared, like, are they gonna pull me over? What are they gonna do to me? It's like you're second guessing everything that you do. You trying to figure out, like, should I go out? Shouldn't I go out? Maybe I should just stay in the house so I can be safe, keep my kids in so we can be safe. So it's like you're basically putting yourself in, like, it's like almost being put in prison. It's like you don't know what to do, what you shouldn't do, what maybe I should do, and you confine yourself to one area, staying in the house, and it's not good for you mentally, physically, or emotionally. Not for your family, not for your kids. So it's like it's taking a toll on, I think, everyone, and everyone, no matter what color you are. Everyone's feeling the repercussion behind this. Also having dealing with now we're dealing with the pandemic also. So you have all these people living in big areas, they're all together. So what's going to come behind that, far as them all being out together and they're protesting and they're looting together. So more than likely, the COVID-19 probably will rise up, far as more people getting it, more deaths. So it's a lot of things. I'm thinking about, far as the future, like, doing all this, like, what's going to be the outcome is not going to be a good outcome because we're supposed to still be social distancing and we're not. We're supposed to be still wearing our masks, and we're not, but we are protesting out here. So it's putting everybody's lives in danger.
You know what? I've seen a lot of people wearing masks. I have seen some people not wearing masks, but I have seen a lot of people. But also to that point, like I feel like I said earlier, it's a necessary. I don't want to say the word evil, but like that's the term, like a necessary. Like it's not ideal, but it's what has to happen at this time.
But I think even like what they said on the news, okay, the mask is not 100% when you are in a large group with people that's hollering and screaming and stuff like that. You in this big crowd, even though you have on your mask, you can still get the virus. Because you're around all these people that's hollering and screaming and stuff. So that mask is not 100% to keep you safe when you put yourself in that situation.
So you know what that should tell the U.S. government? That people are so concerned with police brutality against Black people that they're willing to put themselves in harm's way, knowing full well that the pandemic is still alive, still rising, COVID-19 is a real thing. Knowing all this, they're willing to put their lives in danger to say that somebody else's lives matter.
Yes.
So that should send a signal. Like, if these people are willing to say, I will risk myself to let you know that this group of people, their lives matter, and you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't be allowed to brutalize them. You shouldn't be allowed to murder them and walk away with it. Something has to be done. That's to me, that is a very loud signal.
Yes.
Saying that people don't want it.
They so used to treating people inhumanely because people are protesting and they doing it in a respectful way, and they were still being mistreated. They was getting them dots. They was shooting them dots. Though I forgot what you call them. They was shooting them dots at them, and they was spraying the mason.
The
pepper spray, and they was doing a peaceful protest. They wasn't even doing anything. They may have got a little loud, but that's it. They wasn't breaking any stores, wasn't no one fighting or anything. And then the police rushed them, and then one lady was running, and the police just pushed her down. All that's not even necessary.
Yeah.
I was like, that's bad.
They did that to a news reporter too. Like she was back far enough. They were behind a line that the police had drawn to keep protesters and people behind, and they still shot at her. And she was like, "Why are you shooting us? We're behind your line. We're not doing anything." And they didn't say anything. They just kept shooting.
Yeah,
that's wrong.
I don't know if you guys saw, like on CNN, the CNN news reporter, the whole crew, the reporter, the producer, the cameraman, they all got arrested on camera. I don't think the police knew that the camera was still rolling when they picked up the camera, but the camera was still rolling. They never gave them a reason why they were being arrested. They were saying, here's our badges. We can be here, and we're behind where you told us to go. We moved out of the way when they ran to some lady or whatever. And they're like, you're under arrest. And they never said a reason. They never did anything. They just arrested the whole crew and took them away. To say the news reporter was a Black man.
Yes.
But the other two people were white men. And they arrested the reporter first, and then they subsequently arrested everybody else. I feel like, to me, it's sending the signal like, we can do whatever we want, first of all. We can arrest who we want, when we want, how we want. Nothing's going to be done. Second of all, if you're Black, we definitely can do it. And if you're with Black people, if you're standing up against us with Black people, then we're going to treat you as we treat them. Because most of the videos I've seen on social media, and I'm trying to stay off social media because it's just so much and overload and being stressed at home with your family already because you're quarantined in. The quarantine doesn't lift until Wednesday here, till June 3rd. You're quarantined already, so you already have that on your mind, trying to stay safe. And then on top of all that, you're on social media looking at all this stuff, and it's just really heavy on my heart. It's really heavy on my mind. Sometimes, like, I just haven't been functioning at 100%, and I've been trying to stay off of it. But I watched this video of like a compilation of clips of police brutality across the nation, and they're being brutal to everybody, race, gender, they don't care. I seen a very frail little girl, and they just pushed her to the floor, like to the ground, to the pavement, and it was just like, and then they just start punching this one guy. Like, when did punching someone or kicking someone or hitting someone with a stick, like, when did that become part of police protocol? When?
And then you know, okay, you know how Floyd died. Just yesterday, a cop and another cop had a young man on the ground, and that cop had his knee in that guy's neck.
Yes, he did.
I mean, like, it's like they still don't get it. They don't get it. And so the other cop moved his knee off of his neck.
Yes.
So you still doing the same thing.
Because do you think that they're actually learning something from this? Do you think they actually care?
They don't care. They don't care, because one lady, I know she had hit the cop, but he hit her so hard. This was a white lady too. He hit her so hard, knocked her to the ground. Her head slammed to the ground, and you saw a puddle of blood, and he just stood over her like she was nothing. Then try to call the paramedics, see if she was okay, anything. Just stood over her like she was a dog in the street.
So what toll is this having on you guys, like, emotionally and mentally? Like, I know for me, I'm like constantly drained. I'm drained from the situation. I'm tired. I'm sad. I'm angry. Like, I have been having a range of emotions. I've been sad. I've been angry. I've been like super protective of my kids. Like, I don't even want them to go in the backyard. And that's the only place they can go. And I think about my husband, because just until he was going back and forth to work, and he works in Oak Park. And Oak Park is historically white, historically racist. And just thinking about him traveling in the state that our country is in. And
right.
I've just been in a constant state of, like, you know, up and down, like calm, then up, then down. And then, you know, I believe in God, and I believe in prayer, and so I've just been in a constant state of prayer and just asking God to, you know, keep me and keep us sane and covered and protected. But it's just been hard. It's really been hard to continue to stay positive during this time, because when I see someone else hurting, it's hard for me not to be empathetic.
Right.
Even though it's not my family.
Well,
go ahead, Cynthia. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Quisha. I can relate to what you're saying, because I have a son, and you know, and when I saw that man on the ground, I said, well, that could have been his dad, or that could have been my son, or that could have been one of my brothers or one of my uncles. And so it just angers me, because I worry about my son, I worry about his dad, my relatives, my brothers and stuff like that. And my friends, significant others or husbands or friends. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And it makes me further, to this point now, I know there are some good cops out there, but they are far in between. I really don't trust cops. It has put me to that situation where I just really don't trust them. I mean, because I have had cops pull me. I had a cop pull me over before to tell me that I wasn't wearing a seatbelt, when you can clearly see that I had a seatbelt on. And then he said, well, you could have just put it on. But the reality is, for me to put on the seatbelt, I had to reach behind me, pull the seatbelt over, and then lock it. They would have saw all that. So it was in a town where they starving for money. So why would you just lie and do that just to get money out of people? So there's a lot of crooked cops out there doing things to make money for their town. A lot of crooked cops out there that's abusing people, things like that. And that I'm just tired of it. We need to see positive change, and we need to see it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. It has your emotions like on emotion. I'm like on a emotional roller coaster. 1 minute I'm okay. One minute I'm like a little irritated. Then I'll be sad, and then I'm angry, and then it's like I'm thinking like, when is this gonna end? Like it has me like up and down a lot, and I'm thinking about like all the kids and everyone out here. So it like I'm constantly like just praying and praying and praying to God, because it makes your heart real heavy. So it's like you need something to like take you out of it feeling heavy and feeling, being more like negative. Like I don't want to say that I don't dislike cops, but it also kind of like makes me like undecided. I never did trust them, but I'm not really angry at the cops. I'm just like what I might feel like what are they thinking? Like I think a lot of this is like learned behavior, maybe how they grew up, what they experienced. It stems from somewhere. So, society itself, far as back in the day with the fittest of the fit, the Anglo-Saxons, stuff like that. So it's like it's history is repeating itself. This right what's happened today has never been changed. You haven't seen it, but now today is more visual because we do have phone technology to show what's going on. Back then you would say what would happen, but no one would believe you. But now it's actually out here in forefront, and you are seeing it always did exist. It never did stop. But
Right.
it's like really alarming. But I guess for me, my friends, I'm thinking about my friends, my loved ones. I'm thinking about the whole nation, because it's gonna affect. It's affecting us. It's gonna affect, if we don't get the handle on this. It's gonna affect more generations to come. Our grandkids, our kids gonna keep going down from generation to generation until someone actually begins to change it around and turn it around. So this needs to someone needs to like get this under control, because it's been going on too long. So it's like it's just it's just sad, because we all and inside we're all the same. We just on the outside we just like a little, our colors are different, but we all have a heart, we all have organs, we all have tissues, we all bleed red blood. We're made up on the same on the inside. We humans. We all are humans. We're not animals. So it's like it just really makes me doubt a lot of people. So that's my intake on it.
Yeah.
For me, like, and it's so different for me. Like, I feel really ignorant, and I feel like, but I also like now especially feel really enlightened, because I didn't know, and I'll be honest, I had no idea what white privilege was until February. And that's because like I had to sit down and have a really hard conversation at work with, it was during Black History Month, and like our dean of students, he's a very young Black man, and he had to work in an environment where it's all white people, and it was just felt like the perfect month at that point, especially with all like the meetings and different stuff we had to have, like to talk about this stuff, because there are a lot of Black students at the school that I work in. So and the one time I sat down with my coworker there, and I looked at him and I was like, you need to tell me like what white privilege is, because I don't even know. Like, can you give me an example? And like one of his examples was walking into a room and not getting stared at. And I was like, that's white privilege? And he's like, yeah. It's just small things like that. And I felt so ignorant until somebody had that conversation with me. And now it's like, now that I know and feel a little more enlightened about what it is, I'm angry that people I know and talk to are ignorant to it too. Like this morning, my mom asked me, she's like, Abs, what's white privilege? And I was like, it's literally the simplest things. And she was like, well, I don't need to know why you have to call it like white privilege. But she grew up in a very different generation, and that's okay. But at the same time, like, I just don't think like older, and I can't speak for everybody, but I think some older generations have a hard time being open-minded about some things. And that's what makes me so angry. Cause like even my aunt, like she was all worked up about all this, and I'm trying to like, she made the comment that like, why are all these 18 to 20 something year olds out here doing this? And I don't know. I'm just like, I'm frustrated and I'm upset. Like yesterday I saw a video on social media about it was an older gentleman, two older gentlemen arguing with each other. One was, I think he said 45, and the other one was 31. And they were kind of going at it because the 45-year-old man was just, he's like, I'm just fed up at this point. And the 31-year-old man said, yeah, I am too, but he's like, I did this. He pulled over a 16-year-old boy, and he said, I did this 4 years ago, and nothing changed. So he kind of looked at the 16-year-old and said, it's up to you and your generation to figure out how to fix this and make it better and do it right. So just that, like, educating people, and you can't teach people to have empathy or sympathy,
Right.
but if you educate them, I think on certain things, they can choose how to empathize with it if they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that if you because we can't change the world like we can't change the whole world by ourselves, but we can change our circle and our group. And if you, as a white woman, let the people in your circle know that certain things aren't okay, certain conversations aren't okay, like we are privileged, you may not understand why, and you may like. I've heard the argument from other white people like I grew up in the ghetto, and I was like, right. But if you walk into the suburbs, nobody's going to look at you any different than another suburban white person. If I walk into a suburban area, and I grew up in the suburbs, when I walk into it, there's an extra eye on me. There's an extra look. You don't get that no matter where you grew up from because of the color of your skin. And I feel like as I went to a lot of predominantly white schools, and I'm still friends with a lot of them on Facebook, and they've asked questions like, well, what can I do? And I'm like, you can change your circle. You can have those conversations with the people that you're close to, that you come in contact with. When you hear something that is racist or bigotry, you can speak up against it and be like, no, that's not all right. No, we're not going to talk about that. No, that's a wrong statement. If it causes you to lose friends and lose connections, so be it. That person wasn't meant to be in your life anyway. If you have to endure racism on any side or bigotry on any side to be friends with somebody, do you really want to be friends with that person? Mm-hmm. Like, do you really want to be friends? Like, so I tell them, like, you can change, you can have conversations. And if you have kids, have conversations with your kids, because what really I feel like makes racism and bigotry carry on is the private conversations at home that people have with their friends and their family. When you go home and you tell your kids, like I seen a post of a Vietnamese lady, and she's like, my grandmother used to tell me, stay away from Black people. They're violent, they steal, they do all this. And she's like, and I grew up with that all my life until I got older and I met Black people. And they were my friends, and they were like me, and they were smart. She said that her grandmother told her Black people are uneducated. She's like, and some of them are the smartest kids in my class. And she's like, so the conversations you have at home when no one knows, even though that particular group of people are not there to hear it, rings loud in how your family acts outside of your home.
Right. I think we need more open dialogue about it. That,
Between the
I
races.
think that I think that's why it has went on for so long, for decades and decades, because it's not an open dialogue about racism. You know, the people that's racist don't even want to talk about racism and how they treat different other races.
Yeah, I think part of it was like the education systems. Like, I think I talked to you guys about this one day because I am taking an educational psychology class, and one of the conversations that we had in there was how a lot of teachers today are white females, and a lot of them, whether they knowingly do it or not, don't cater to some of the students that they're teaching and the color of their skin.
I think Tanya had a situation like that, where she had a teacher cater more to the white students and not so much to the black students. And I think we was in a class like that too, where when I would ask a question, my question wasn't good enough for that professor. He preferred the students that the white girls that was in the back, the students that was in the business class. He it's like he catered to the business students more than he did the rest of the class. I can't think of his name, but I think he's the professor that taught it was it
I mean, we don't have to say what it was.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a couple of us picked up on that. So I was like, okay. So I didn't let it upset me too much because I said, well, okay, it is what it is.
Okay. All right. Our time is winding up, so I think we should carry our conversation on next week. But I did want to say, like you were saying, Abby, about it's mostly white women teaching in your school. And I have 4 sons, and my first grade son has a white teacher. She's a white woman. And at the beginning of the year, she used to call me every day. And I just had to have a conversation with her, like, listen, you need to try to understand who he is. My son is not a violent kid. He's not a troublemaker. He's very smart. He does have like dyslexia. So it does frustrate him when he can't get something. He can't read it. He can't put it together, blend it, all that stuff. So he gets angry and he does get frustrated. But he also is the kid that if someone does something to him, he's going to react. He's not going to not react. And I'm like, you have to look at the whole situation. You're calling me about certain things and you're not investigating. You're just taking somebody else's word. And I don't know if that's because he's a young black boy and you see him as a problem already or what it is. And after I had that conversation with her, then me and her talked more and it was like, oh, yeah, well, this student did this to him and then he reacted in this way. So we're working on, this student and then we're also working on him not being reactive. And I'm like, okay, that's progress. But I found this book on Amazon because I'm be honest with you, I found it when I was angry because I'm like, I am a mother bear and I ferociously protect my children. Mm-hmm. And if I feel like at any moment my kids feel unsafe, they feel unheard, they feel disrespected, they come home, he's really sensitive and he comes home with this beaten down type of, aura or whatever, demeanor. Oh, I'm going to go in. So I found this book and I found 2 books and one of them is named For White Folks Who Teach in the Hood and the Rest of Y'all Too. And I was like, I'm going to buy that book for her for Christmas. And then it's another book that's called The Guide for White Women Who Teach Black Boys. And it's about understanding, respecting, and connecting with them. Oh. So I was like, I'm going to buy her his book because she really needs to understand. My 4th grade son has a white teacher. And although she's white and most of the people and the kids in her class are black or Hispanic or whatever, she tries. I can literally see her trying to connect with them, trying to understand where they're coming from and their background, their culture. Like cultural differences make a huge difference in everything and how kids learn and how they interact in school. So I really want, like, don't get me wrong, my first grade son, his teacher she's a new teacher, so she's smart, but she's not that great at teaching yet. You know, she's getting her feet wet or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want her, I don't want to be like, oh, just, you don't know, so just, you need to stop teaching. No, I want to be able to help her learn. So I think that book will be a great learning tool for her. So on to what Cynthia said, we need to have more conversations between the races and individual. Like the white people in their race need to have more race conversations about, you know, making friends outside of your race.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you make a black friend, you can understand a black person better. If you make a white friend, you can understand white people better. But if you never become friends with these people, you never interact with them, you're never going to understand where they're coming from. And I think it's all about getting to know a person and understanding that person.
And not knowing and not getting to know someone by maybe their gender, their gender or race, it can make a person inferior. You know, you could, because you perceive them to be one way, but they're actually not that way. So it's good to get to get like to know all kind of people from every walk of life. That way you can know how to communicate, get to know them. Don't dwell on the assumptions of what you think you know, but know what you need to know about every person. Because you can be inferior, because I had foster kids. I had foster. They came from Inglewood, so predominantly black, and they came over here, and they went to school in Lockport, which is predominantly white, and they had a hard time connecting with the white students, not because of what they know. It was because they was inferior of the white classmates. And I said, hey, get to know these people, reach out, talk to them, get to know them. They're young just like you. You probably have the same things in common. So they eventually ventured out, and they got to know the other classmates that were white, and they found out they were cool. They were cool. And then once they found that out, they began to have more different friends. And they became more calmer and more comfortable with the whole atmosphere of it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a work in progress. Next week, y'all want to continue this conversation? Let's see what next week bring. Well, not even next week. Later on in this week, let's see what this brings us. If it's more rioting or whatever, in this crazy world. All right. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any comments or suggestions or whatever, please leave them below. Subscribe to our page. And thank you. And we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.